Little Archie, issue 59. That cute little witch. Thankfully, every issue of Little Archie can be downloaded from archive.org, and there's a list on a website of every little Sabrina story in order, so maybe I can review all of them after all. In the first one, Sabrina's holding on to Zelda's shirt while she's flying Sabrina to school on a broomstick. It does make sense that she'd be too overprotective of Sabrina to teach her to fly on a broom when she's a kid, just because of her age, because she'd think she's the more responsible flyer. It's not like she couldn't do it herself. I guess the reason they aren't warping the school directly is that they don't want to risk someone seeing that. But someone could see them flying too. But this way she'd be able to look below her and around her and see any witnesses ahead of her first. So doing it the way that's less likely to be spotted means she might not have to spend the effort of memory erasing. Sabrina says she's going to be late for school. You'd think her aunts would have woken her up instead of letting her sleep in. I guess they care more about her getting enough sleep, or they slept in too. Also, they could always reverse time or stop time, so there's no real hurry. I have to assume witches are always reluctant to do time spells out of laziness. They could explain that it would exhaust all of their magic. Zelda's going as fast as she can with the broom. I guess she's protecting them from G-force with magic too. She could go extremely fast with it. You'd think she could cast a spell to give herself extremely fast reaction times so that she could handle flying to school as fast as possible. The bell rings and Zelda casts a spell to warp Sabrina into the classroom, which startles Jughead. Which is exactly why she must have not warped to school in the first place. But she had to at this point. Sabrina compassionately hopes she didn't frighten Jughead, and he lies that it's okay and he always throws his sandwiches around the room. He says that's the last time he tried to sneak a sardine jelly sandwich in class and throws it away. I guess he magically assumes that taking a bite of it caused them to somehow not notice Sabrina until she popped in because it poisoned him. And he's a kid, so him assuming it happened right away makes sense. I wish it was explained that witches cast a spell, so mortals tend to assume that any magic they witness after eating something bizarre is a hallucination from what they ate. Miss Grundy complains that Archie came to class late and says he's not going to sit in back all year because she wants somewhere she can see him. I guess because she doesn't trust him because he's late a lot, so he's a screw-up. She tells Reggie to change seats with Archie. As usual, it's forced that he's called Little Archie and okay with it, but it makes sense that she'd hate Reggie enough to pick on him. Archie's glad because Reggie's not okay with losing a seat. And Archie says he wrote the book reports. Reggie switches his work with a blank paper, and it takes too long to get to Grundy seeing the paper because Archie and Reggie talk first. This is the boring part of the story where Sabrina's not the focus. So there's a frustrating turn of events where Archie gets in trouble when he shouldn't, and gets forced to write an essay as a punishment. I understand why Reggie thought he was justified in doing this because he wanted to punish him for taking his seat from being late and teach him not to be late again. Thankfully, Sabrina uses magic to make the book report fly back to Archie. This startles Reggie into falling out of the chair. I see that people witnessing magic is part of the comedy of the comic. And no one heard Sabrina say the spell in particular. And there's tons of people here. So it makes sense that while it's obvious magic exists, it's no big deal because they don't know who cast the spell. Archie hands Grundy the book reports and she gets told the truth. It's satisfying that she tells off Reggie instead of not believing anyone about what happened. She says she usually doubles a kid's time after school for doing something horrible like this, but this time she'll quadruple it. Sabrina compassionately hopes Reggie isn't in too much trouble. Jughead lampshades that Reggie gets into trouble regularly since Sabrina came into the class. I think he means Reggie's been getting, but he's a kid, so grammar mistakes are forgivable. Her being new to the class makes it a little harder to believe that nobody's figured out it was her who was causing all of the magic though, because it only started happening once she showed up. This story was about Reggie making it so that Archie hands his teacher a blank paper instead of his book reports, and Sabrina uses magic to get him his report back. So while it was frustrating that Archie got in trouble when he shouldn't have, Reggie getting punished was great. It was also great that Sabrina showed up for compassion in this story a lot, defining her character. Her being young was taken advantage of in only an unspoken way where she's not the one flying the broom to school, and she has to take a ride on her aunt instead. It's even Zelda instead of Hilda, which is more in character and shows off a character who doesn't get enough screen time. It's not frustrating that she's less capable in this way, because it doesn't matter right now. It's not like she made a big screw-up or didn't think to do something her older self would do. So it's not intrusive that they're all younger. This is the animated series done right. No off-putting new characters or annoying new things, like Sabrina being a complete idiot. Little Archie issue 60, a clean sweep. Sabrina does the annoying thing she does a lot at the start of these stories, where she talks to the audience. This wasn't even necessary. There's some narration that all started when her family sold stuff from their basement to the junk man. That would be smart of them if they made sure to separate the items people could discover the magic of from the other items and only sell the right things. I like that it's explained that they sell their stuff, because it explains how they make their money. Zelda says her broom's gone, and Hilda accuses her of being very forgetful, being rude to show that she's still in character. And somehow Zelda says her name's Hilda. She's never been that forgetful. I can only give the story the benefit of the doubt by assuming that she's just making a joke. But why would she make a joke that only prove Hilda's point at her own expense? Sabrina smartly tells Zelda to try to think of where she last used it. Zelda says she was using it to do Sabrina's laundry in the basement. Wait, how do you use a broom to do laundry? What has that to do with putting clothes in the washing machine? Sabrina figures out that the junk man took the broom by mistake, and nobody says that they gave it to him. It's so hard to believe that they'd keep the broom there. Zelda says it was a special broom that made for a cool ride in the summer, because of a spell. Hilda reveals that when anyone holds the broom, they can get their wish granted. And I have to come to my own conclusions about why that's put in the brooms that are made for people with omnipotence anyways, who are trying to hide their identities on Earth. First, not every witch lives on Earth, so the designers of brooms might not have had a strong enough reason to care, or it slipped their minds. And second, sometimes witches run out of magic, and sometimes there's spells that they can't do. So even for a witch, it could come in handy for the broom to have wish-granting power. Also, it could not even be an intentional part of the broom's design. It could just come with the territory of it being a broom with magical spells on it, because it's so full of magic that it automatically grants wishes. The fact remains that you'd think brooms would be designed to only respond to their owners. But I guess the reason that's not the case is just in case of an emergency where it needs to be used by a non-owner, who can't fly without a broom or teleport for whatever reason. Maybe from a lack of magic or skill at it, and the owner's unconscious, or has her hands full. Maybe stuff like that happened and caused witches to sue the broom manufacturers so that the brooms can work for anybody. And even requiring a password would be rebelled against because people can forget passwords. Still, I had to spend a long time coming up with explanations for why the broom could grant wishes to mortals because the story didn't bother to, and it comes out of nowhere seeming arbitrary, because that's not what flying brooms are famous for. But it can make sense, it just seems like it's only there for the sake of the plot. It would be half as confusing if what the guy took by mistake was a crystal ball that could grant wishes instead, because that immediately makes sense to have that spell on it. I just have to explain its lack of security. Zelda wonders how they could find the junk man when his truck could be anywhere by now. They could gaze into a crystal ball or reverse time. It goes without saying that reversing time could solve any problem. I think we have to assume that in most Sabrina stories, witches can't do that, especially since it's extremely rare. What's less rare is them stopping time, which they could do to easily catch up to the truck while flying after it. Somehow, the broom has a hard time carrying Zelda and Hilda. I think the lines mean that it's shaking. Why would it be magically programmed to do that in response to too much weight when it can still fly anyways? The junk truck drives along a road with holes in it, and the broom falls out of it. Then I have to assume that the birds in the trees can't literally speak English, and it's just translated for the audience. And I'll admit it's less annoying this way because I can instantly understand what he's saying instead of having to see an animal noise word, and then look at the bottom of the panel for the translation. But I'd like an asterisk, and then the words, "This is a translation of bird noises to English," at the bottom of the panel. A bird sees some straw for his nest and gets pushed out of the tree abusively, and somehow isn't injured after that fall. Well, the smaller you are, the better you can survive a huge fall, but still. It wasn't even funny. I just felt sorry for him for having an awful wife. He tries to get straw out of the broom while wishing that this house was already built. Then a house appears where the nest is because the magic interpreted the bird literally, reading its mind to know what it wished for, without knowing somehow that it meant nest. Why would a bird who only understands the life of a bird think of the word house and not nest? Jughead sees that and connects the dots. Sabrina decides to look outside after helpfully trying to look for the broom in the cellar. Jughead stands on the broom like the bird did. I respect that he's not just unrealistically brushing it off as a hallucination for no reason, and instead is open-minded enough to try to use the broom's magic himself. And helps that he's a kid. The characters being kids helps justify when they witness magic and don't dismiss it as something they just imagined, and actually try to get magic to work for them instead. So in that sense, it's more fun and exciting that they're like this. Moose shows up mad at Jughead for eating his sandwich in school. What took him so long to call him out on it? Jughead says he thought he was throwing it out. If he was, then there's no reason Moose should be mad. If he wasn't, then he must be lying and hoping he'll believe him out of his usual idiocy. Because otherwise, why would he incorrectly think he was throwing it out? He threatens to hit Jughead. He doesn't even have to be dating a midget to be a jerk. Jughead wishes for just a minute that he was twice as big as Moose. He could have wished Moose was nice. But I understand him feeling like getting revenge at a time like this. So he gets his wish and doesn't freak out because it benefits him, and he's already accepted what the broom is capable of. So he threatens Moose and he runs away. He returns to normal and lets Moose run away while smiling. I love that he was responsible enough to only wish he was that big for a minute. It seemed like a few seconds, but I think the magic realized that he meant seconds. But it's sure convenient that this time magic didn't take someone at its literal word. It makes sense that it'd understand a person better than a bird, where it can only understand its vague feelings. To a bird, a nest is a house. So magic heard it saying nest in its brainwaves and thought it meant house. I love that he was so impressively nice that he didn't beat him up and stoop to his level. I'd be fine with one punch, because this guy's even less likable than Reggie. But considering how easily wish granting can corrupt someone, it's so sweet to see him choose not to hit someone because of it. He wishes for some burgers too, another simple pleasure, not trying to do anything ambitious that would backfire on everybody. So far, if he had magic, it'd be fine. I love this, even if it's predictable that he'd do this. I wonder why he says hamburgers when burgers is faster. Is that because it was the 70s? He eats the burgers, and Weatherby snarks that Jughead would eat food from anywhere. Jughead somehow thinks it's a good idea to tell him that he found a magic broom and insists on telling him that it's true, and telling him how to use it. Oh, this couldn't go wrong. To be fair, he's a naive kid who only thought to use the wish granting to get some food. Because he's a kid, it makes sense that he wouldn't be constantly aware of all the problems with the world that Weatherby might want to get rid of. Jughead just thinks he's doing him a favor and nothing could go wrong. Weatherby somehow actually tries to use the broom instead of walking away, dismissing him as a liar or just playing. But it can make sense that he'd try it out of desperation for it to work. And I like this better than a story where a character gets flown around on a broom when they don't want it to fly them. Weatherby wishes some hair on his head and he instantly knows he has it, which would only make sense if he actually heard the zap sound. It's magic, so why not? Usually I have to assume that no one but maybe witches can hear the zaps, because otherwise magic would give itself away to mortals much easier. But with the broom in particular, it has a zap that everyone can hear. It could have easily been that he didn't believe Jughead because he wouldn't have a mirror. Sabrina finds the broom after running out of the house and traveling all the way here on foot. It's convenient that she happened to take this street and find it. But it's not unbelievable. She says a spell to get the broom to fly away from Weatherby, who wants to go after it. It heads towards Sabrina, and she's scared that they'll find out she's a witch. Even if she does know how to erase her memory of something, and maybe she doesn't at this age, it makes sense that she'd dread seeing their reactions to her being a witch. Then it cuts back to Zelda, who spots her broom. I've been so relieved that I didn't just focus on them and have them do everything. It'd be sad if they did everything and had most of the focus just because Sabrina's a kid. But even then, it could be worse. Zelda casts a spell to straighten things out, and then all of the wishes get cancelled out. So there's a sad ending where the bird's wife never wants to talk to him again because she expects him to produce a house again, not even just lead her to a birdhouse. It was surprisingly responsible of Zelda to think to cast a wish undo spell on the broom just in case, instead of assuming that no one used it yet. This was an impressive story. I thought it'd be about the broom getting sold to the junk man because one of Sabrina's family members gave it to him stupidly, but instead he took it because it was with the stuff that was actually being sold, and I guess Zelda forgot she had her broom there. So that makes more sense. And why didn't Zelda just warp the broom back to her? I guess it's impossible, for some reason, because it's got magic in it. Or she really didn't want anyone to see it get warped to her. So what? No one would believe them and they'd assume it was a hallucination. In another twist, the broom falls out of the junk truck before the ants flying around could catch up with it, because the roads are bumpy. You'd think there'd be a roof on the container that has all of the stuff from the junk truck in it, to prevent stuff from falling out. I loved seeing a bird wish on the broom and Jughead make some wishes too. And it was nice to see people make simple, unambitious wishes that couldn't backfire. Too bad most of them were undone by Zelda then, but she didn't know, and I prefer Weatherby Bolt. Sabrina might as well have not done anything to help other than tell Zelda to remember where she last used the broom. I'm glad the story focused away from the ants until Zelda found it. It's creative that the plot was about the broom granting wishes instead of flying someone against their will.